guy came to my door and like looked at me. And I'm weapon slung because I'm putting the charge on the door. But I pulled my pistol out and I just stuck it up in his face. And I said, in English, open the door. And he looked at me and he went, laying underneath the bed on the floor was a guy like this, as flat as he could be. And he had a toy plastic AK-47 laying next to him. Rug with the rope to the cork plug in the hole, pulled the cork out and saw this.
You were on the Saddam raid.
Yep.
Let's go into detail on that.
Yeah. That one. So that happened Halloween night. And then that was October 31st. So the month of November, it was like whack-a-mole. It was like we get some intel hit here or there, some guy that was connected. I mean, we were all over the country trying to catch Saddam. It got to the point where it was comical, like where we were laughing about it. You know, we would pre-stage. At this point, they've got FOBs established in various points of the country, so we would pre-stage at these FOBs, do a broad daylight helo assault to an objective, and then that evening we'd get another hit, and we'd do a, ground-based vehicle infill and hit a target in Baghdad, and then we'd fly back to Ramadi and we'd hit a target in Ramadi. It was like one after another, 24-hour ops. We were literally exhausted. And then lo and behold, early December, so it was December 12th of 2003, we got a hit on a guy, came up, it doesn't matter how they figured it out, but signal intelligence, a guy popped up and on a phone, and it was a guy that we had been tracking named Mohammed Ibrahim al-Muslit. And Muslit is who our intelligence analysts, it's not unlike the bin Laden story in that there was really one person that had been working the problem set from day one, and they were really the key person for tracking down an individual. We had an intel guy that tirelessly poured over information and details and data and background and history, and had a pretty good idea of how and where Saddam would be, who would be connected to him, and then had further developed how he was getting information out, giving orders out, whatever, and who was hiding him. And Muslit was the key to this. He was the key courier or messenger, if you will, that probably knew where Saddam was and was responsible for giving Saddam's orders out to, the sort of network that was spread around Iraq. So we called him the golden ticket. And so they told us that we had a possible for Muslit, and it was in Baghdad, which we were surprised. It actually wasn't far from where we were based out of, our mission support site, the house that we lived in Baghdad in the Green Zone. And so we rolled out on vehicles. We hit the initial target. It was a troop plus, so it was 3 teams plus a team from another troop that hit the initial target, and it was a dry hole. Like Muslit wasn't there, nothing of value was there. They didn't know anything. But while we were there, we were dead silent. It wasn't like we blew doors and all that stuff. It was a pretty quiet hit. I think they got another hit, and they narrowed down his location, and it was a couple of blocks away. So we moved. It was a kind of 4 apartments in one house. So it was 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs, with a stairwell that ran up the middle and then split. So you had one apartment on the right and one apartment on the left. I ended up being the lead team on the apartment on the right, and I was the breacher at the time, and another team had the door on the left. Just putting a charge up on the exterior door. It was a dual door, so I had to open the exterior and put a charge in between the two to get them to blow both directions. So I'd open the door, place my charge. The team behind me on the other door had done the same, and somebody in there had like bumped something and made a noise. So I was on a knee and just put the charge on the door, and a guy came to my door and like looked at me. And I'm weapon slung because I'm putting the charge on the door, but I pulled my pistol out and I just stuck it up in his face. And I said in English, basically I mouthed, open the door. And he looked at me and he went. And so he opened the door. I basically just rode the door into him as soon as he turned the handle, pushed him against the wall and just held him there as the team made entry behind me. Cleared the room, cleared the first room. I think it had a bathroom and maybe 1 or 2 bedrooms off of it. All secure, nothing. Nobody in the house. Progressed to SSE, so we're talking to the guy that I've had against the wall, cuff that dude. They're doing a little battlefield interrogation with him, and the other guys are going through portions of the house, and we hear a call from one of the back bedrooms, and it's a teammate. He's like, hey, I need a guy. There's somebody under the bed back here. And so a guy went, pulled the mattress up, and laying underneath the bed on the floor was a guy like this, as flat as he could be, and he had a toy plastic AK-47 laying next to him.
A toy?
A toy. A kid's toy. Shit you not. And so, picked this guy up. He didn't look like the photos we had of Mooselet. We on the ground didn't think it was him. Whatever. It's another one of those dry holes. But they were both a little weird and a little shady, and there was a few things on target that didn't make sense. And one of them was in the SSE. In Mooselet's wallet, he had, a couple $1,000s worth of cash, and it was in U.S. hundreds. The U.S. hundreds were sequential. So the serial numbers on the bills were literally in order. So like
wow.
00851, 00852, 00853.
You guys figured that out right there on the spot?
Yeah, so you don't see that, right? Like, unless it came out of a large sum of money that was withdrawn from an institution at one time. That just doesn't happen. But regardless, like, it didn't look like our guy. We didn't think our was guy. And then we'd been chasing Saddam for a year. So we're like, it's just another dry hole. So we drove the detainees back to Biap, handed them off to our intel analysts and some of the interrogators that had set up shop there at Baghdad International Airport. And we went home. And like I said, 24-hour ops. At the time it was commonplace to like pop an Ambien when you got back from a mission, so you knew you could get 3 or 4 hours of sleep before they woke us up to go do the next one. So I think we popped an Ambien, maybe had a beer or two. We're like, another dry hole, and we went to bed. About 4 hours went by. Our intel guy comes running back in to the MSS. He comes back to where our troops' rooms are, because we were the ones that had just pulled this dude out. And he goes, it's him, man. It's totally him. And we're like, what? Well, you're ridiculous. There's no way it's him. Yeah, no, it's him. It's Mooselet. It's the golden ticket. And he is spilling his guts. He knows where he is. He knows who's with him. You guys need to get your shit on. Get ready. We're going to Tikrit. And we're like, all right. So we had another one of our troops, our recce troop actually, was in Tikrit. So they stuck Mooselet on a helicopter in Biap. They flew him up to Tikrit, handed it off to them. We loaded up in vehicles and started the drive, a couple-hour drive up to Tikrit from Baghdad. They took Mooselet out and did a close target reconnaissance in a couple different areas. And what it was what our intel analysts thought all along. He was going to be near Tikrit, near Samara or whatever the town he grew up in was, that he was going to only have a tight-knit group of people around him, that he was going to be near the river because Saddam loved fish, and he had a real strict diet, and he only ate fish, and he had a personal chef, and that chef had a family farm. And Walt always believed that those were going to be the people closest to Saddam because he was paranoid, and this dude had been with him forever. So we identified the cook's house, and we identified the cook's farm. The house was in town, the family farm was outside of town, and we came up with a plan after those two were pointed out based on the reconnaissance, where we were going to split up as a squadron. My troop was going to take the house in town. The other troop, plus snipers, was going to take the farm. And we did a simultaneous hit on both those places. While we were doing the hit on the house in town, I think the guys finished up on the farm about the same time. And the call came back from the farm that it was a dry hole, that it wasn't the right place. It wasn't the cook's family. Like, something was off. But we had cased the chef. And he identified himself as Case, although he didn't say he was Saddam's personal chef. Battlefield interrogation right there very quickly led to, yep, I'm Case the cook. I'm Saddam's personal chef. And yeah, he's been hiding out with my family. So what had happened was Mooselet, in a last-ditch effort to defend Saddam, had pointed out the wrong farm, knowing he was on another one. So after some work and driving the guy out and confirming locations, they realized they were one farm off. Well, luckily, C1 had hit the first farm, total blackout, no charges, no flashbangs, no nothing. They had done it completely silent, so they hadn't spooked anybody. They shifted over and hit the next farm. And then, shortly after that, they uncovered the rug with the rope to the cork plug in the hole, pulled the cork out, and saw this looking down on a guy. Pulled him out of the hole, and it was Saddam.
No shit.
Yeah.
Were you surprised he came back alive?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was, during that phase of the war, your marching orders were kill or capture. You had rules of engagement that warranted either one. I think with Saddam, it was understood that we weren't bringing him back. That being said, it's a unit operator and we're the good guys. And they pulled the cork out of the hole and there was an unidentified male with his hands over his head. Yeah. The guys aren't going to put a bullet in him, and they certainly weren't going to pull him out, look at him, and put a bullet in him, because that's not what we do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, friends of mine, guys, so this is secondhand. I'm still in town going, man, I hope this is it. Yeah. You know what I mean? We're like sitting in the vehicle at this point, just waiting on the radio call. And, but yeah, they pulled him out of the hole. Holy shit, it's Saddam. And yeah, that was kind of it. So the radio call came, and I think the squadron commander at the time said, I have a possible for BL number 1.
Holy shit.
And so, yeah, we were pretty freaking ecstatic. The joke was on the way there, we were like placing bets with each other, like, do you think this is it? And in the beginning, when we first left Baghdad, we were all like, bullshit, that's not it. There's no way it's going to be another dry hole. By the time we got there and like the CTR had happened and all that stuff was going on, we were all kind of coming around like, all right, maybe this is it. And I remember there's so many weird moments from that night, just besides being a significant part of history, and it obviously means more now than even it did at the time. But I remember like kitting up to go do that originally. And I remember the dogs, when you'd put your kid on, the dogs would get fired up because they knew it was go time. And it was like the one time that I really noticed it. Like they were like panting and like ready to go just because we were putting our gear on. And it just felt different. Like I just was like, yeah, this might work out.
Wow.
So yeah, brought him back.
Did you see him?
Yeah. I mean, a few cool things happened. Like there's some pictures that exist. There's some pictures that made it out from that. But one of the cool things that happened was we brought him back to Tikrit, and we had him in our detention facility there. We had next to the house. The guys were staying in there. And they let us basically all come into the open hall of this house when we walked him out to put him on the helo to fly him down to Bayap. So there was an opportunity for everybody that was a part of the operation to physically see him and be close to him and understand the significance of the event. And I thought that was a cool call by the leadership. The pictures that made it out were actually taken by a interpreter that worked for a 3-letter agency. A lot of pictures were taken that day, and the understanding was these are for years and years only, and they're not for public release. But she immediately emailed those to someone, and they ended up finding their way onto the internet. But it's ancient history now, so it doesn't matter. But at the time, it was a big deal.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But yeah, so flew him down to Bayap, and yeah, he stayed there. It was a different animal than years later with Bin Laden, but Saddam sat basically in a prison cell for a year till they hung him after publicly trying him, and the whole thing that happened after that.
Hey everybody, I'm Shawn Ryan. Click here to subscribe to the Shawn Ryan Show YouTube channel for the hottest and most compelling interviews that you will not see anywhere else. I've also made a playlist of all the previous SRS episodes so they're easy to find. You can find that right here.